Hello everyone and welcome once again to ThursDev. I'm your host Luke, and today I wanted to talk to you about the concept of technical debt. This ties in a little bit with the video that I recently did about learning how to know when your game is finished, even if you yourself aren't, in that today's video in many ways talks about solving development issues and maintaining momentum through intelligent compromise. Inevitably, as you journey through the process of developing a game, on more than one occasion, you'll run into an issue that can get in the way of progress. Wonky AI, poor performance, unexpected behavior, or even just a piece of design that you can't find an elegant way to accomplish. Whatever it may be, you may find that the solution is just outside of your reach, beyond your abilities, or so deep-rooted in other inextricable parts of your game that there's no choice but to rethink your approach to solving the problem and slapping a band-aid on it. Sometimes you know the right way to do something, but you just don't have the time or budget to do so. If you're any kind of perfectionist, which I feel many of us are, the compulsion will be to allow this to become sort of a white whale of sorts, something that maybe you'll set down for a while because you have other jobs that are pressing enough to warrant shelving the issue temporarily, but you still come back to, maybe spend some time tinkering with, but no matter how much you work on it, you can't quite solve to the point of risking becoming a distraction. When you encounter an issue like that, assuming that a day or two of poking and prodding don't lead to a light bulb moment, sometimes you just have to look at how you can find your way around the issue, even if it's a gruesome, hacky workaround, and tell yourself that it's not an ideal solution, but it's a solution, especially when you need to finish this and move on so that you can work on other things. It's not an elegant fix, but it's a fix. It's not a great design, but it's a design that works. It's not a perfect way forward, but it's a sad reality and must be embraced for the good of your sanity and the sake of forward motion. Don't take this as an endorsement of mediocrity, however. As with all previous videos, I encourage you to chase perfection whenever it's practical to do so, but at times, you're forced to commit to measured compromise. The thing of it is, there's a point where perfectionism in your project becomes destructive. If you're on your own, then at least you only risk wasting your own time, but if you happen to be part of a studio, where there are others that rely on you to finish your work, then at some point you're going to be holding up the forward momentum of your project altogether because you haven't found the solution that you want yet. Ultimately, you have a responsibility if you're planning on releasing a game to take the necessary steps to completing and releasing that game, and from time to time that might mean putting something in place that will at least accomplish your goals, if not necessarily in the way that you want to. In the games industry, and much of the rest of the software development space at large, this is called accruing technical debt. If you're not familiar with the concept of technical debt, it's a common development metaphor that likens development time to money. You take a shortcut or implement something easy with the knowledge that you're going to have to pay it off later, often with interest. Frequently you'll have to write something that's not modular, or you'll have a bit of program that introduces some bugs that you can work around for the time being but might come to bite you in the ass later. It's not pretty by any right, but it's a necessary evil in many cases to move a project forward. Martin Fowler, a software development consultant whose name you may have spied as one of the co-signers of the Agile Manifesto, which I spoke of recently, has written at length in his blog on the topic of technical debt, and has identified 4 types of technical debt, a matrix with 2 vectors, prudence and deliberateness. The above example is one of prudent, deliberate technical debt. We recognize the need for the debt, and we take it on with the foreknowledge that we'll quite possibly need to address it before it causes too much software entropy later down the line. It's the fixed-rate mortgage of technical debt. There are other, less manageable forms that it can take, though. In the opposite corner of our matrix, we see reckless, inadvertent technical debt, which is exemplified by the inexperienced developer, completely unaware of how to make the right choice in the first place. Unfortunate, but excusable if, ideally, they're working on something that won't hinder others, and in the right environment can even be converted into a prudent inadvertent debt, assuming it becomes a learning experience. But it's the 4th quadrant that, in my experience, leads to the most headaches: deliberate but reckless technical debt. My sometimes co-host John refers to this as cowboying in features, where technical ramifications be damned, we're going to slot this into our game. In its brazenness, this kind of technical debt is the type that leads to the worst kind of avoidable entropy, since it creates a mess in your project that can be devastating to clean up. It's a blind spending spree, if you will, which is careless in the best light. When you have the wherewithal as a developer to make a risk evaluation before diving headfirst into an issue, there's very little excuse as to why you shouldn't. Technical debt, whenever you accrue it, means that you're going to have to go back and fix it at a later date. You're creating more work for yourself later by taking the short term now. Sometimes the amount of work that you do is less in the long run, but either way, technical debt can get in the way of a project moving at the right speed. And in the worst case scenario, can force you to spend an entire sprint doing debugging and fixing the problems that you set in place before. Unfortunately, technical debt is just a part of game development, and probably all software development. But as long as we're beholden to development schedules and budgets as we all are, it's just something that you have to accrue over time. The important part in doing this, though, is that you recognize when you're gaining technical debt, and that you accrue it on your own terms. Much like using a credit card, the practice of accruing technical debt should be a measured one. So as developers, we need to accept that though technical debt is never something that we ideally want to have, it does serve a purpose, and in some cases that purpose can even be positive if it means that we can propel our project further forward. And on rare occasions, our gambits turn out not to manifest as debt at all, but you should never plan for that to be the case. When the time comes that you need to make the choice to do something hacky and inelegant, at least you'll know how to deal with it down the line when it does come time to pay the program piper. An extra day learning how something's going to bite you in the ass later will help you to select the right pair of jeans to be wearing when it does. But that's all for me today. I hope that you found this episode of ThursDev entertaining and educational, or at least one of those two. If you did enjoy what you heard here today, consider joining our little cadre of video game enthusiasts who love both the playing and the making of video games. But even if you want to keep the relationship casual, you're always welcome here. Thank you as always for watching, and I hope that I'll see you around again soon. Take care.